the Rangers may not be spending big money on free agents this winter, but there are 5 players who I think the Rangers should sign to contract extensions. On today's show, we're looking at the 5 players most likely the Rangers should sign extensions to and what those extensions would look like. All that and more on this episode of Locked On Rangers. Let's get into it.
You are Locked On Rangers, your daily Texas Rangers podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
You are locked on to the World Series champion Texas Rangers. I'm Bryce Patrick, a cripplingly addicted Texas Rangers fan covering this team for 10 seasons, including all 5 as the founder and host of this podcast. Thank y'all so much for making Locked On Rangers your first listen every single day. If you're not already, you can follow me on Twitter at Bryce Patrick. You can follow the show at Locked On Rangers. Hit subscribe on your favorite podcasting platform and on YouTube, where the best way you can help grow the show is to comment nearly any single thing below. Now, on today's show, we're talking about some contract extensions because, unfortunately, even though it's day 3 we're on of the winter meetings, there's not much happening. We could talk about the big name that everyone's talking about, Eric Fetty, who I literally never heard of before, a free agent pitcher who the Rangers are not even linked to. There's not a whole lot that's going on at all. Everyone's waiting on Shohei Ohtani. Everyone's waiting on Juan Soto. Everyone's waiting on Yoshinobu Yamamoto, and none of those things are happening. But the thing that has happened that I'm going to make about the Rangers, even though it's not about the Rangers, is Jackson Chourio. You may not have heard of this guy. He is a 19-year-old top prospect for the Milwaukee Brewers. He is regarded as one of the top 5 prospects universally in all of baseball. And he's just 19 years old, like I said, out of Venezuela. And he signed this week, officially signed an 8-year, $82 million contract with a potential value of up to $142 million. Now, you may be thinking, Bryce, what does a Brewers teenager signing in a deal have anything to do with the Rangers? Well, it doesn't, but I'm going to make it about the Rangers because there's nothing going on right now. But it does relate to the Rangers in that the Rangers have, some young players that have not played in the major leagues or haven't played a whole lot in the major leagues who the Rangers might want to extend because they are big believers in those guys. This is newsworthy because it's the most money guaranteed to a minor league player who has never made their major league debut. There have been, I believe, 5 other deals in major league history of guys signing extensions, multi-year extensions, for a big league contract before they've even made their big league debut. And the most before this was Luis Robert Jr., the center fielder of the White Sox in 2020. He was 22 years old at that time, signed a 6-year, $50 million deal with a couple of club options at the back end. And he is still on, he's got 4 years, I believe, of club control left. Maybe it's 3 years of club control left, but he signed that before 2020, and it's looking like a pretty good deal for the White Sox. They also signed outfielder Eloy Jimenez to a 6-year, $43 million deal. Evan White signed a 6-year, $24 million deal with the Seattle Mariners. He was just traded in a salary dump because that has really not worked out. Also, Scott Kingery, a 6-year, $24 million deal. He was an infielder slash outfielder with the Phillies. That deal really hasn't worked out either. And then a $24 million deal 5 years, $10 million deal for John Singleton, the former and now current, again, first baseman for the Astros. That deal before he had played a major league game. He was in extenuating circumstances. He had PED suspensions, and so things just really didn't go quite right for him. He is back in Major League Baseball with the Astros, had a very memorable plate appearance in the playoffs of the ALCS where Jose Leclerc struck him out before Adolis Garcia hit that grand slam in Game 6 of the ALCS. Very nice plate appearance by John Singleton. An okay season, but not an everyday player. Good feel-good story for the Astros, a team very short on feel-good stories at the moment. But there are also some other young stars who have signed some big contracts in Major League Baseball that, have worked out very well. Looked like very below-market deals for young players who, were just starting their career, but they wanted a lot of guaranteed money, because injuries can happen at any time, and your first 3 years in the big leagues, sometimes 4 years, you're making less than $1 million a year. And so these guys wanted some guaranteed life-changing money, and they signed these long-term extensions. That includes Ronald Acuna Jr., who signed an 8-year, $100 million extension, which at the time felt insane because he was coming off a Rookie of the Year performance where he won Rookie of the Year over Juan Soto his rookie year, and he looked incredible and has been incredible and was, earth-shatteringly incredible this year, but also had an Achilles injury, a knee injury in the middle of his career, or 4 years into his career. And so it looked like, all right, taking that $100 million, you never know what you're going to look like when you come back from that. It makes sense. And that's kind of why guys might sign deals like this. I mean, Ozzy Albies was another, very below market value deal. Julio Rodriguez, coming off his rookie of the year season, signed a 12-year, $209 million deal with the Mariners. And then Corbin Carroll, who played about 2 weeks, maybe in the big leagues, before he signed an 8-year, $111 million deal. So there is precedent for this. And the Rangers have some young players in their system and on their big league roster. And Evan Carter is kind of comes to the top of the list. We'll get to him in just a second. There's also Wyatt Langford, who I think is a better prospect than Jackson Chourio. I think Evan Carter is as well. And Evan Carter has made his big league debut and has hit third in a lineup that won the World Series, which is awesome. And he's just a couple years older than Jackson Chourio. But those guys aren't at the top of my list for the players that the Texas Rangers need to re-sign. They have a lot of guys with years of control. Obviously, they have 8 more seasons of Corey Seager. If they'd sign him to another 10-year, $320 million extension after this one is up, I wouldn't be against that. That's not going to happen, obviously. But still, there are a few guys who are about to start getting a little bit more expensive and buying out some of those arbitration years for extra years of control, buying out some of those free agency years, I think makes a lot of sense for a few guys on this list, and even a few pre-arb guys. We'll get into them in just a second. But the guy who's at the top of my list for the player the Texas Rangers should extend is Jonah Heim. He's 28 years old. He is a switch-hitting catcher. He is an all-star. He is a gold glover. I think at some point he will probably win a silver slugger. Maybe he won't, but still, he is one of the most valuable catchers in the league, a switch-hitting elite defensive catcher, one of, if not the best defensive catchers in all of baseball. Again, like I said, he's going into his age 28 season. He's going to turn, I believe, 29 somewhere around the middle of next year, but he's coming off a career year and a pretty darn good year the year before that, where he probably should have been an all-star, but was snubbed by former teammate Jose Trevino. But he's going to make approximately $3.4 million next year. Again, he's got 3 years of arbitration control left with the Rangers, and you don't see guys like this very often. That's why he's at the top of my list, because it is so rare to find a switch-hitting catcher with power who is elite defensively, not let alone just elite defensively. Plus, whatever you get offensively from him is a bonus. He had 18 home runs this year, which was a career high. I thought for sure he was going to get 20, but he didn't. 95 RBIs, a 755 OPS, just a very solid season. Above average hitter while playing elite defense as a catcher. That is very difficult to do. It is very, very difficult to do. And so I think the Rangers buying out a couple of his free agency years, maybe a longer-term deal. But let's look at some of the contracts of catchers around the league and how his deal should compare to that. Right after this word from our sponsors. This episode is brought to you by Jase Medical. I know we come to sports to escape some of the crazy realities of life, but can we just talk about a minute for preparing tough situations? Whether you're on extended travel, bracing for a major weather event, or limited by yet another supply shortage, you are covered, my friend. Thanks to our partners at Jase Medical, lifesaving antibiotics, and a long list of daily medications can be ordered in a 1-year supply. Jase Medical has the Jase case. The Jase case is a pack of 5 different antibiotics to treat a long list of bacterial illnesses, including UTIs, respiratory infections, sinuses, and skin infections, among others. This stuff could happen to any of us. So visit jasemedical.com and complete your physician encounter. It will be reviewed by a board-certified physician, and your medications will be dispensed by a licensed pharmacy at a fraction of the regular cost. It has never been more important to be prepared than today. Go to jasemedical.com and use offer code LOCKEDON to get $20 off your order. Shout out to the everydayers making Locked On Rangers your first listen every single day. On tomorrow's show, I'll be back and talking about, hopefully, some actual transactions going on at these winter meetings. Now, I talked about Jonah Heim being the first player that the Texas Rangers should extend, and this is where some deals compare to him. Now, I think the most comparable is Sean Murphy, who signed a 6-year, $73 million deal with the Atlanta Braves after he was traded by the Oakland A's. And this year he was one of, if not the best catchers in all of baseball. He was a lot better offensively than he was in the first half than he was in the second half. He was a 3.9 WAR player according to Baseball Reference this year. And in the first half, he had an OPS of 999. He was absolutely sensational. And then he really fell off in the second half. A 585 OPS in the second half, finished with 21 home runs on the season. He hit over 300. He had nearly a 3.46 slash line, batting average over 300, on base exactly 400, and slugging literally just 1 point below 600. And then, just a really disastrous offensive second half. But still, defensively, he's one of the better catchers in the league. Offensively, he's one of the better catchers in the league, even with his second half fall off. And he's a year older than Jonah Heim. They're both former Oakland A's farmhands, which, again, is just got to be sickening. The amount of good catchers that have come, just good players in general, the A's have traded for pennies on the dollar that are thriving elsewhere. But, I mean, a 6-year, $73 million deal is what Murphy signed, $12 million average annual value. That was below market value, and it's a trend of the Braves players. There'll be a few other Braves contracts that I reference on here of just guys who want to be in Atlanta, and so they signed longer term, probably below what they could have gotten on the free agent market because they wanted to stay in Atlanta, and they won a championship. And, well, they have won a championship recently in Atlanta. They've got a pretty good crew, a pretty good lineup, and the Rangers have significant control over most of their guys. But Jonah Heim, I mean, these catchers like this, they do not grow on trees. They are incredibly rare. That's why everyone is fawning incessantly over Adley Rutschman, because he is just a younger, definitely better offensive version of Jonah Heim. Not quite as good defensively, though, because I don't think there's any catcher in the league right now that is better defensively overall than Jonah Heim. Maybe that guy out there, Patrick Bailey in San Francisco, or maybe Gabriel Moreno. But I don't think the game planning and that part is nearly appreciated enough about Jonah Heim. So next guy on this list, JT Realmuto, signed a 5-year, $115 million deal, making about $24 million a year. He is the highest paid catcher in Major League Baseball right now. Salvador Perez, who was a little bit older when he signed his extension, 4 years, $82 million. That's $20.5 million per year. And then Wilson Contreras was just on the free agent market, signed a 5-year, $87 million deal with the St. Louis Cardinals. And then there was some drama about whether he was going to catch or not. He's a little bit better of a hitter, probably significantly better hitter than Jonah Heim. But I still think that Heim's ceiling offensively, I mean, that's what takes him from like top 5 catcher to best catcher in baseball. Like, I think he's definitely got that potential. We saw what he did in the first half this year and in the first half last year. I mean, he has got the ability to go on stretches where he just is insanely hot, and the defensive value is always there. So my deal, what I would sign Jonah Heim to, since you've got 3 years of control, so you're buying out 3 years of free agency, even though he's only expected to make $3.4 million this year. And again, at this point, I don't know if the Rangers are going to sign any contract extensions right now. I mean, I think they would make sense, but given all the talk about payroll flexibility, with the Bally Sports situation up in the air, I don't know if these deals would happen right now. I would like them to. I would like them to just be confident that the money is going to be there eventually, and just not be poor coming off a world championship. But I digress. This is the deal that I would sign Jonah Heim to. 6 years, $75 million. So you're buying out 3 of those years of free agency, and it's going to be a little bit more expensive in the short term. But over the long haul, you're securing your guy, a type of player that is very, very difficult to find, making $12.5 million a year, making him in the top 5 highest paid catchers in all of Major League Baseball, which he deserves to be because he is a top 5 catcher in Major League Baseball. And I think that's fairly obvious. He has proved that so far. I mean, the average catcher salary this year is $2.7 million. That is not a whole lot of money. That would put him, if he's making, $12.5 million, that would put him as the 4th highest paid catcher next year, behind only JT Realmuto, Salvador Perez, and Wilson Contreras. So I think that's about what he deserves to be paid, given his track record, and I think that would be a great deal for the Rangers. Next guy on this list, a little bit older, but a little bit more of a folk hero. That's Adolis Garcia. He is going into his age 31 season. He has also got 3 years of arbitration control left. He's projected to make a little bit more than Jonah Heim next year, about $5.5 million. These are the deals who I think are kind of comparable to him. I mean, George Springer signed a 6-year, $150 million deal. That's $24 million per year. Nick Castellanos, I think, is kind of a similar type of player. Not quite the postseason folk hero that Adolis Garcia is, but he signed a 5-year, $100 million deal with the Philadelphia Phillies. Kyle Schwarber, not a Gold Glover like Adolis Garcia, but he signed a 4-year, $79 million deal. So Adolis is an interesting situation because he is getting a little older, but he is a 2-time All-Star. He is a emotional leader. He is beloved in that clubhouse, beloved by Rangers fans all over, beloved in Major League Baseball in general. And he has not made a whole lot of money. And there's been a lot of significant questions about him, whether, because a lot of his skill set is based around his athleticism. And so the thought was, we don't really know if this guy is a full-time, everyday player. And he has proven beyond a shadow of a doubt that he is absolutely that. And he is one of the best outfielders in Major League Baseball. I mean, you look at his ranks among outfielders in Major League Baseball in different categories the last 3 seasons where he's been an everyday player. He is top 10 in Fangraphs WAR. In home runs, he is top 5. If you look at RBIs, he is 3rd. If you look at just games played, he has been very available. He is top 5 in that as well. I mean, he's exceptional. He is a star. He is, the money that he brings in of people watching because of Adolis Garcia, people coming to games because of Adolis Garcia, people spending money on jerseys and stuff because of Adolis Garcia. He is a face of your franchise. He really is, just as much as Corey Seager, as Marcus Semien, as Jonah Heim, as much as all of these guys. He is a face. So I would sign him to a 5-year, $125 million deal. That's making $25 million per year. It would make him among the highest paid outfielders in baseball, which he deserves to be. And you would be buying out 2 years of free agency. He would be 35. His age 35 season would be the last year of that contract. So you're getting him for the most productive years of his career. And that $25 million would put him in the top 10 highest paid outfielders in baseball next year. Put him just ahead of George Springer, just behind Christian Yelich. Actually, it would be a little higher because for some reason it has Spotrac has Trey Turner listed in the outfielders, so that would put him as the 8th highest paid outfielder in Major League Baseball next year, behind Aaron Judge, Mike Trout, Giancarlo Stanton, Mookie Betts, who is actually going to be an infielder next year, so that would put him up even higher as the 7th highest paid outfielder in baseball, and also Chris Bryant, Bryce Harper, and Christian Yelich. So, yeah. That is a no-brainer type of deal. That is life-changing money for Adolis. It will be a little bit more than he is projected to make next year, but he's going to be 30 after his age 33 season when he hits the open market. Maybe it'll take less than this. Maybe it'll be 5 years, $100 million. But I think this is a sign of respect and a sign of how much the Rangers appreciate him, and not just that, but just paying him like the star that he freaking is, and a belief that the changes that he made this year are real, because I think they are. I mean, the raw power, the athleticism, the outfield defense, the massively improved walk rate and plate discipline. That is what's taken him from, we're not really sure if this guy is going to be an everyday player, to this is a certified star, one of the faces of the league. That is what this playoff run did for Adolis, and he deserves to be paid like it. And you don't want to lose Adolis Garcia. I cannot imagine watching Adolis Garcia in the playoffs go on that kind of a run for some other team besides the Texas Rangers. I mean, he has meant so much to this team. The Rangers believed in him when other teams didn't, and even when they DFA'd him, they still ended up giving him a chance that season. I mean, they probably should have given him a chance a little bit earlier, but hey, it worked out. Nobody else gave him a chance either. So the Rangers, did not end up losing out on what has been the most fun player on the Rangers for the last 3 seasons. And I think he definitely deserves to stick around in Texas for the long term and get that generational wealth that he deserves, because that run was unlike anything else I have ever seen. And that 7-game stretch, well, eight game stretch really, from the 7 games of the ALCS all the way to Game 1 of the World Series, where he hit that walk-off home run, which I have watched probably 150 times to this point, and I will probably watch it 150 more by the time the season rolls around. It's not just about, oh, thank you for the World Series, here's some money. It's, no, this is a star. Pay him like one and keep him around in Texas for the rest of his major league career. Coming up, we're going to look at a couple of young guys and one not so young guy that I think might turn some heads of who the Rangers should extend. Right after this word for our sponsors. Now, the next guy on this list is someone who is going to be one of the faces of the Texas Rangers for many, many years to come. This is one of the few pre-arbitration eligible guys on this list. But this is Josh Jung. He is 26 years old. He's got 2 years of pre-arbitration control left and then 3 arbitration years. So 5 years of club control, and he's not really going to start making almost any money until 2026. So it's going to be a little while. So you're going to want this to be a longer term deal. And he proved this year that he is one of the best third basemen in all of baseball. He started the American League All-Star game, or the All-Star game for the American League team. And we saw how important he was to this club when he was out for 6 weeks with that broken thumb. This club struggled mightily, and I don't think that is a coincidence. I mean, he made leaps and bounds of improvement defensively this year from anything the Rangers thought. I mean, he should have been a Silver Slugger, at least finalist. I mean, he was great offensively, defensively. I mean, just being a homegrown Texas kid, went to Texas Tech, like, is just very much a guy who, you know, a lot of, you know, casual Rangers fans are going to rally around because it's like, hey, here's Texas boy. Love that kid. And there's a lot of Texas Tech fans out there, like myself included, who are like, I freaking love Josh Jung because he is a Red Raider and a Texas Ranger and a World Series hero for all time with the Texas Rangers. So there are a few guys who have made quite a bit of money. There's a lot of good third basemen in this league. Deals that I think are kind of similar. Alex Bregman, who was 26, which is the same age that Josh Jung is, when he signed his extension with the Astros, that was 5 years, $100 million. So that's exactly $20 million a year. He is probably going to be a free agent, almost certainly going to be a free agent after this year. And the Astros are very insistent that they are not trading him, which is funny they had to come out and say that because it's like, oh, maybe the Astros are already on the downturn. But this is not about the Astros downfall podcast. This is about contract extensions. The other guys on this list who have signed very long extensions. You look at this list of third basemen who have signed these extensions, they're usually for a lot of money and for a lot of years. Bregman is the exception at 5 years, $100 million. But he's a Scott Boras client, so yeah, he was almost always going to want to hit free agency, especially after the career that he has had. Now, the next guy on this list is about the same age, actually was exactly the same age when he signed his extension as Josh Jung, Rafael Devers. Now, he has spent significantly more time in the league, has quite a few more skins on the wall, good things under his belt. He also, I believe he was a member of the 2018 World Series team. He was a lot younger when he made his major league debut than Josh Jung, but he signed a 10-year, $313.5 million deal. That's $31.4 million average annual value. I don't think that Josh Jung is going to get a $300 million deal, even if he signed it today. I mean, I love Josh Jung. You will find few bigger believers in Josh Jung than me, but that is kind of the top end of the market. I don't think that he would necessarily sign a deal like that. I don't think the Rangers would offer him that, especially not right now, given the whole money situation. Next guy on this list, Austin Riley, yet again, another Brave, signing a long-term extension, probably under market value. Now, Austin Riley was fantastic this year. He's been fantastic in years past. He's a multi-time All-Star, and was, he was the third baseman for the Braves when they won it all in 2021, which is the first time they've done that this century. But they've had some other championships under their belt, so wasn't as life-altering as the Rangers championship. But he signed a 10-year, $212 million deal. That's $21.2 million average annual value. He is a homegrown player by the Braves, who worked a lot on his defense. I mean, he's a good defensive, offensive third baseman, like probably a guaranteed like top 5 third baseman in all of baseball. $20 million a year is not a whole lot, but that 10-year deal, that kind of adds up. Next guy on this list, the last guy on this list, is Jose Ramirez, who is playing for the Cleveland Guardians, who don't have a whole lot of money, but did sign their star. They traded several stars away in years past, but Jose Ramirez was going to stay in Cleveland 7 years, $141 million, $20.1 million average annual value. So again, you got 5 years of control for Josh Jung, who'd be 31 heading into his free agency if the Rangers don't sign him to extension. So I think an 8-year deal makes sense. So he'll be 34 years old by the time that deal is done. Maybe the Rangers would look at a 10-year deal. But again, I don't think this is happening this offseason. Definitely something that the Rangers are probably bantering about with his agent, just like, hey, let's just float a ballpark number of it, what kind of crazy extension we could sign with your client, because we love him, we want to keep him in Texas, and he means a lot to this franchise. I think 8 years, $160 million, $20 million average annual value. I think that would make sense for Josh Jung. Again, love the kid, think the world of him, and I think keeping him in a Texas Rangers uniform for the long term. Still got the next 5 seasons under contract, but I think making it official and paying him like the star that he is would be a great sign. Next guy on this list, Evan Carter, 21 years old. He's got 6 years of club control, 3 more seasons before he even gets arbitration eligible. I think something along the lines of that Corbin Carroll deal of 8 years, $111 million would make sense. I think he is going to be an absolute star in this league, and he is going to be a face of your franchise, and he is, hitting third on your World Series winning team as a 21-year-old who had played like 20 games in the big leagues before the postseason. It's nuts. The Rangers believe very highly in this kid. He loves it here so far. I mean, he's only been here for about 5 minutes, and he was talking like he wouldn't even be, like he wasn't even guaranteed to make the opening day roster, which I think is hilarious and also an indication of, his humbleness, but he's going to be on the opening day roster. He is going to be an opening day starter. He is going to be an everyday player for the Texas Rangers. Just needs to figure out how to hit lefties. And other than that, kid's golden. So locking him down for the long term, buying out a couple years of free agency, I think this would be a great deal for the Rangers. Again, I don't think they do it because you want to keep these pre-arb guys, especially while you're having money troubles. If you've got these pre-arb guys that are stars and are going to play like stars, like I believe Evan Carter is going to do, like I believe Josh Jung is going to do, and like I believe Wyatt Langford would eventually do. You want to keep them on those pre-arb kind of deals while you still can. But definitely want to buy out some of those free agent years and keep them in Texas Rangers uniform for the long term. Now, the last guy on this list might surprise you a little bit, but I have Nathaniel Lowe on here. He is going to go into his age 28 season. He's got 3 years of arbitration control left, estimated to make $8.8 million next year, which may seem like a lot for a guy who didn't have the best offensive season. But again, remember, he hit third for the Rangers for most of last year. He had a very good defensive season, won a Gold Glove, and the year before he won a Silver Slugger. I mean, you compare him to other first basemen around the league, and it'll surprise you how high up there he is among these guys. I mean, he is top 10 in FanGraphs WAR over the last 2 seasons as the Rangers starting first baseman. You look at batting average, he's top 5 among first basemen in the league. You look at on base percentage, he is top 5 in the league. You look at slugging percentage, he is top 10 in the league. This is a guy who is very consistent and very good. I mean, he had a bad second half, kind of not a great year, but again, going through personal tragedy, remember that it takes a toll on everybody, and we've seen the raw power of what this guy can do. We've seen how good his walk rate is, and his defense is improving, and I think he's one of the better first basemen in the league. Now, I don't think he's top 3, but I think he's absolutely top 10, and he's a guy who's got plenty of control, who the team loves, who reporters love. He is just beloved in that clubhouse, and he's a very good player. I think people are calling him very average player. He's a good player, and I think he's very underrated. I was not high on him when the Rangers traded for him, but I think extending him makes a lot of sense. There's not a whole lot of guys in this farm system that project to be pretty good first basemen, and of all these guys who you're talking about potentially trading away, or just you just replace, just find another Gold Glove, Silver Slugger first baseman. The Rangers haven't had a first baseman who won a Gold Glove and a Silver Slugger since Mark Teixeira. Those guys don't just grow on trees. they are hard to find. And Nathaniel Lowe, I think, should be paid like one of the better first basemen in the league. Now, there's guys like Matt Olson, who signed an 8-year, $168 million deal, making $22 million per year. Freddie Freeman signed 6 years, $162 million, $27 million average annual value. That was in free agency. Anthony Rizzo signed a 2-year, $40 million deal. So I think somewhere in the $5 million or 5-year range, $85 million, that's $17 million per year. I think he's going to have a very, very good season next year, and he is a part of the core of this team. I think that this is a good top 5 list for players that the Rangers should extend. I didn't include Wyatt Langford on here because I think that it's definitely a different deal than guys like Jackson Chourio and guys like Luis Robert Jr. He's only had like 2 months of pro ball. And now, granted, they were absolutely sensational. But you look at the list of guys who have gotten those, pre-big league extensions, and there have been a lot of them that just have not worked out at all. I mean, John Singleton very much didn't work out. Luis Robert Jr. worked out so far. Eloy Jimenez worked out, but Evan White was literally just salary dumped. I mean, how many of you have even heard of Scott Kingery? And John Singleton went off the rails as well. I think Chorio's deal is going to look pretty darn good in retrospect, but there's a chance that it really doesn't. And so I think that, giving Wyatt Langford at least a full year in the minors before you offer him life-changing money makes sense. But that's going to do it for today's show. Thank y'all so much for listening, and until next time, don't forget to enjoy World Series champion Texas Rangers baseball.